scheduled, and they just did a flip-saroo, so there we go. Let's see. True story. Hopefully my PowerPoint will come up in a second. While we wait, here we go. There we are. It's official, I'm here. For over 2 decades, I've worked with our national leaders on complex issues in Capitol Hill and Washington, D.C. And over those 2 decades, I've learned a thing or two about what makes a great leader. And I've also learned a thing or two about what doesn't make a great leader. Now, many of you may have heard this, but there's some derogatory stuff about Washington. We don't always get a lot of good press. And one of the things people say is that Washington is Hollywood for ugly people. Now look at these good-looking people. Come on. It's not all, oh, wait a second. Okay, maybe we're not the best-looking town out there, but we are the most ambitious. We have a statement in Washington that's passed around. If you want to be a leader, all you got to do is find a parade and jump in front of it. This is me in front of a parade in Lisbon, Portugal. I'm not exactly sure what the parade was, but I'm leading it. You know, when you hear that, you kind of chuckle, but the truth is, it is shocking how often you see people pulling this stunt, putting their finger, licking their finger, putting it up in the air, seeing which way the wind's blowing, and running out the front of it and saying, "It's all about me, I'm leading this show." You don't just see it on Capitol Hill. Friends, I hate to admit it, you see it in the church too. But that isn't leadership. That's just being a fast follower. So what are the components of being a great leader? These are the 4 P's of great leadership: prescience, popularity, principles, and priorities, and we will unpack them in short order. Prescience. Prescience is gathering the data, the trends, looking towards the future, understanding what is coming at you, preparing for it, so when you get there, you are prepared. The hardest thing about prescience, recognizing trends and future occurrences, they're personally unpalatable. Maybe the greatest leader for prescience, the greatest example, was Winston Churchill. There's a fabulous biography of Winston Churchill by a man named William Manchester. Now, what's weird about this biography is that it ends just at the point where he becomes prime minister. It's before all of the major things that you know him for. Before Dunkirk, before the Battle of Britain, before D-Day, before victory in Europe, before any of that. So who would read a biography that ends before he becomes prime minister? Well, it turns out a lot of people. And the reason is, what happened before he became prime minister helps you understand how he acted when he was prime minister. One of the things that he was so amazingly good at was prescience. He gathered the data, he looked over the horizon, and he saw things that everybody else missed because they found it so unpalatable. Everyone was hoping, oh, we can work this out. It's going to be okay. We don't want another war. Whereas Churchill went to the Houses of Parliament and said, the Luftwaffe are so strong that in one night, if they put their forces together, they could bomb London and kill 40,000 people. People did not want to hear it, but it was what they needed to hear. Prescience is a core part of leadership. For you as leaders and for me in the church system, we need to look over the horizon and act now. We have to look at social trends, economic trends. We've got to look at legal and regulatory trends and be prepared. second is popularity. You know, you might think I'm a sad middle-aged man, but let me just paint a picture for you. It's Saturday night. I'm in my beautiful convertible. I am driving alone, and the wind is in my hair. At least as much hair as I still have left. And I'm listening to the oldies station. But I'm not listening to the Beatles and the Stones, not even the Beach Boys. I'm listening to C-SPAN. Because on Saturday night, they have one of my favorite programs. Replays of old political speeches. I can see, I know what you're thinking, it's sad, but it's true. And the other night, I was driving alone, because I dropped my kids off somewhere or another, and I heard the JFK moonshot speech. But I heard one part of that speech that I'd never heard before. Yes, you all know this. You can probably recite it. We choose to go to the moon. I can't even emulate the accent. We choose to go in this, it's not decade, it's decade, and so forth. But there was the second part of the speech that I found absolutely stunning. Because JFK didn't just say we're gonna do it, he took the audience, the American people, on a journey with him. And he was honest and frank and explained what the situation was. He says, to be sure, all this costs a good deal of money. This year's space budget is 3 times what it was in January 1961, and it is greater than the space budget of the previous 8 years combined. That budget now stands at $5,400 million a year, a staggering sum. Well, somewhat less than we pay for cigarettes and cigars every year. Puts it in context. I can't imagine a leader today getting up and saying that. Everything's free and everything is easy with politicians' speeches today. No one pays anything, right? Space expenditures will still rise some more, from 40 cents per person per week to 50 cents per person for every man, woman, and child in the United States. But we have given this program a high national priority, even though I realize that this is in some measure an act of faith and vision. But we do not know what benefits await us. It is, and we'll do it right, and do it first. This decade is out. If we're going to do that, we must be bold. Friends, that is taking people with you. You are pulling them in, you're trusting their intelligence, you're giving them the data, and you're saying, but we're still going to do it, even though we don't know what the results are going to be, because we're going to be bold, and we're going to get this done. If you want to be a great leader, if I want to be a great leader, we have to trust the intelligence of the people we're leading and bring them in and take them on the journey, just like JFK did. The third P is principles. It's great to be pragmatic, but if you don't know what you're being pragmatic about, you end up like a piece of tape flailing in the wind. You've got to have principles. When I think about a leader with great clarity of their principles, I think about the first U.S. president who was ever a labor leader. You know, we had a president who was a leader of a labor union. First one ever, only one. And ironically, it was Ronald Reagan. He was head of the Screen Actors Guild. They're on strike right now over in LA. You want to go see your favorite actors? Go outside the studios where they're carrying pickets. And what was his organizing principle for his political life? Reagan was against the communist system of government. And he made no bones about it when he was young, when he was middle-aged, when he was old, whether he was in government or out of government. This was the organizing principle. And one of his famous speeches was, I urge you to beware of the temptation of blindly declaring yourself above it all and label both sides equally at fault, to ignore the facts of history and the aggressive impulses of an evil empire. This is evil empire speech. To simply call the arms race a giant misunderstanding and thereby remove yourself from the struggle between right and wrong, good and evil. I was a college kid when he was making these statements, and I always thought, whew, this guy's a bit over the top. And everything needs to cool down. There's lots of shades of gray, right? But because he had principles and did not hide them and work towards them, he's given a lot of credit for ending communism in Europe and freeing East Germany and all the former Soviet Union. For us in Adventist education, we need to stand up and be counted for our principles. We have a view of human origins that is not shared in the public school system. We should be proud of our principles and say what they are. We have a different view of human sexuality than they're teaching in public schools. We need to stand up and be proud. We have a different view of where we came from, why we're here, where we're going, and we need to stand up for our principles because the world is looking for something different. Amen. But I'll tell you one thing. Whatever's going on out there, it isn't working. Our society is in crisis and our school system, our public school system is in crisis. People are looking for something better. Let's never, never, ever hide our principles. The final P of great leaders is priorities. You know, when I think about a leader who came into Washington with a priority, I think about a conversation I had with a good friend of mine over on the House of Representatives side. This friend happens to be a progressive Democrat. And she was very upset with Barack Obama, with President Obama. She said, you know, ever since he's come in, he's focusing so much on healthcare, it sucked the oxygen out of every other issue. And even then, I said to her, but you gotta understand, reforming healthcare, getting change in the healthcare system, whether you agree with it or you don't, is an enormous, enormous task. And if you don't focus on it, you're not gonna get it. So you can focus on 25 things and you're gonna get nothing. So you focus on one thing, you may accomplish it. This is President Obama at the end of his presidency, talking on his great achievements. The thing that he focused on in this speech is Obamacare, and he says another 20 million Americans now know the financial security of health insurance. And the net result is that never in American history has the uninsured rate been lower than it is today. It's worked. Now you may agree with that or you might not agree with it, but either which way you have to say this. He wouldn't have got this if he didn't make it a priority and sacrifice everything else he wanted to do so he could get it done. That's what great leaders do. You know, if we had a slogan for our church, it would be this: over-vision, under-resourced. We can be proud of it, but it really shows a lack of leadership and focus. If everything is a priority, what? Nothing's a priority. We need to become the church of or. We could do that, or we could do this. But we can't do both, and we can't do both well. It's better to have one program that is excellent than a whole bunch of programs that are mediocre. Make the hard choices, have the priorities, and that's how you achieve great success. So let me review the 4 P's of great leaders. And let me just add one more. Prescience, popularity, principles, priorities, but with one overarching principle that does not start with a P. Fidelity to God. If each one of us can have fidelity to God, and with harmony with that fidelity, have prescience, popularity, bringing people with us, we can have God's principles in our hearts and not ashamed to say what they are, and to be rigorous about prioritizing so we accomplish what we need to accomplish. We can be the great leaders that our students need, our schools need, our society needs, our country needs, and our world needs right now, because we are in crisis. And one of the principal problems with that crisis in society today is a lack of great leaders. Friends, thank you for your time. I'm praying that each one of us in our areas and in our responsibilities stand up and be the great leaders that God has called us to be. Thank you very much.